Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. The day after accepting my crush's confession, I woke up and found myself 10 years in the future. The moment I opened my eyes, a little boy with big round eyes was standing in front of me, calling me Mom. Still in disbelief, I searched through a dusty storage room and found a wedding photo. But to my shock, the groom in the picture wasn't my crush. It was someone else entirely. I jolted awake, lying in an unfamiliar bed. My mind was a complete mess as I tried to figure out what was going on. Before I could process anything, a small figure suddenly dashed in from the doorway. I instinctively shut my eyes, pretending to still be asleep. The sound of tiny footsteps approached, slowly followed by the gentle touch of a soft little hand resting on my forehead. A child's delicate voice started rambling about what they had eaten recently and what they had been doing. Just as I was wondering about my connection to this child, the next thing he said made my eyes fly open in terror. Mom, you've been sick for days now. Why haven't you woken up yet? You don't like me, but I really miss you. Please wake up, Mom. Please. This kid just called me Mom. My eyes snapped open, and I saw a little boy with big eyes and a small mouth staring at me in shock. Before I could say a word, he turned and bolted out of the room. Oh my God. Just last night I had accepted my crush's confession, and now I had a kid this big. After the child ran off, I immediately grabbed my phone and called my best friend Emily. I had no idea what had happened in the past 10 years, but my phone had barely any messages, and all my old friends had completely disappeared from my contacts. The phone rang several times before Emily finally picked up. What do you want? Her voice was cold, so cold that I almost didn't recognize it. I scratched my face awkwardly. Her sudden aloofness left me momentarily speechless. When I didn't respond, she seemed to grow impatient. Ava, say something. Didn't you say you'd never contact me again? Oh God, what exactly had I done in these 10 years? I hesitated for a moment before saying, Emily, I know you like to act cool, but can you not be cold to me right now? I just want to ask you something. The most important question I had at that moment. Who is my husband? Emily fell silent for a long moment before finally replying. Ava, did you forget to take your meds today? So 10 years later, Emily had learned how to insult people in a roundabout way. I'm serious. I snapped. She sighed. Forget it. Just stay where you are. I'm in line for a COVID test. I'll come find you later. Her voice sounded serious. Wait, so this wasn't time travel? I was just sick? Also COVID test? What's that, and why did she have to line up for it? Just as I put down my phone, a woman who looked like a housekeeper knocked on the door and cautiously asked if I was feeling better and whether I wanted to eat something. So my mystery husband was rich enough to hire housekeepers? I nodded, and in no time, an array of exquisite dishes was placed. Before me, I picked up my chopsticks and started eating. To my surprise, everything was exactly the kind of food I loved. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the little boy from earlier peeking in from outside the door. I suddenly realized this might be my son. My eyes lit up as I waved at him and said, Hey kid, come here. The child hesitated, then timidly walked over to my bedside. Why did he look a little scared of me? Wait, did I marry some rich guy and become an evil stepmother? Scratching my head, I softened my voice and asked, Sweetheart, what's your name? How old are you? The little boy's chubby cheeks scrunched up, full of grievance, as if he couldn't understand why his own mother didn't remember his name. Mommy, my name is Ethan. My nickname is Sam. I'm 4.5 years old. So I really didn't end up with my crush after all. I continued questioning him. Sam, let's test you. What's your dad's name? Sam proudly answered. My dad's name is Sam. Before he could finish, a voice interrupted from the doorway. You're here. It's time to go downstairs and study. Don't disturb Madam while she's resting. It was the housekeeper. She had suddenly appeared at the door, cutting Sam off. She quickly turned to me, her face full of apprehension. Madam, I'm so sorry. I should have been watching Sam more carefully. I'll take him downstairs now. She walked over cautiously and gently pulled Sam away. I simply nodded, still unable to grasp the full situation. Ever since I woke up, the housekeeper's attitude toward me had been strange, almost as if she were afraid of me. And yet, no one would tell me my husband's name. I decided to look for clues myself. The bedroom was luxuriously decorated, but there were no wedding photos, no visible signs of another person living here. Could it be that I had one of those mysterious husbands who just sent money home every month but never actually showed up? As I stepped out of the bedroom, I finally realized I was in a 2-story villa. Downstairs, Sam was sitting quietly by the floor-to-ceiling window, working on a puzzle. The sunlight streamed in, casting a warm glow around him. His long eyelashes hung low as he focused, looking so obedient and well-behaved that my heart instantly melted. I rushed over to him, startling him in the process. "What are you playing with?" I asked enthusiastically. "Let's do it together." Sam's big eyes widened in shock, and he immediately straightened up as if being punished. He hesitantly called out, "Mom." I pulled him into my arms and planted a big kiss on his soft, fair cheek. He touched his face, looking a little surprised but happy. Judging by his reaction, I could guess that the me from 10 years later probably hadn't been very affectionate toward this child. Fortunately, Sam was still young and didn't hold grudges. After playing with him for a while, he quickly relaxed and started excitedly sharing his puzzle with me. "Sam, is this the only thing you play with?" I asked, puzzled. "Kids your age have lots of toys." Sam carefully glanced at me before whispering, "Mommy used to say other toys were too noisy and I would get angry." Oh God, the me from 10 years later really was sick. That moment, the doorbell rang. It was Emily. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Was this really my tomboyish childhood best friend? She had grown out her hair and curled it into soft waves. Her makeup was flawless, her brows perfectly shaped. I exaggeratedly widened my eyes and gasped, "Wow, who are you, gorgeous?" Emily rolled her eyes at me. Meanwhile, Sam clearly recognized her and ran up excitedly, hugging her legs. "Auntie Emily." Emily affectionately patted his little head before turning to me. "Let's go upstairs and talk." I quickly led her back to my bedroom. Before she could even ask anything, I spilled out everything I had experienced so far. When I finished, Emily frowned, scrutinizing me carefully before asking, "How do you know you time traveled and didn't just lose your memory?" "I remember everything," I said firmly. "The last meal I ate before traveling was tomato stew at the school cafeteria. I can even remember the test I took 2 days before that, down to the exact questions. If I had amnesia, there's no way I'd still recall details like that." Emily raised an eyebrow but remained silent. She knew me well, probably as well as she knew herself. Feeling a little awkward, I hesitated before finally admitting, "Okay, the day before I traveled, I had just accepted Jason's confession." Emily's expression instantly darkened. She let out a cold laugh before launching into an explanation of everything that had happened over the past 10 years. As it turned out, my future self really was sick. I had developed bipolar disorder, and the reason Jason, my ex according to Emily, had always pretended to treat me well in public, but behind the scenes, he had been emotionally tormenting me. By the time he realized something was wrong, it was already too late. I had completely lost myself. Later, Jason even accused Emily of seducing him, and in my unstable mental state, I had believed him and cut ties with Emily. Then at 27, Jason dumped me for his new girlfriend, my former college roommate. I hadn't been able to handle the betrayal. That was when my bipolar disorder fully took over. I pressed a hand to my forehead, feeling the weight of it all. Damn. This really is the tragic life of Ava Mandro. Then I looked up at Emily and asked, "So who is my husband now?" Emily looked at me, hesitated for a moment, then finally said, "It's Ethan Joe." What? My mind went blank. Of all the possible outcomes, I never expected this. I had married Ethan Joe. The three of us, Emily, Ethan, and I, had practically grown up together. We lived in the same apartment building as kids and even attended the same school. Ethan had always been that legendary perfect child that parents love to compare their kids to. He was good-looking, smart, well-mannered, always helping old ladies cross the street and giving up his seat for the elderly. The more my parents praised him, the more he annoyed me. But as a wild little, I thought back to how I had found Sam sitting alone downstairs, quietly working on his puzzle. I felt a sharp pang in my heart, like I had swallowed a lemon whole. I made a mental note to take him out somewhere fun in a couple of days. That evening during dinner, Sam sat on his chair, swinging his little legs as he excitedly told me all about his day at school. After spending a few days together, he was no longer afraid of me. For the first time as we got ready for bed, Sam hesitated before softly asking, "Mommy, can I sleep with you?" He stood in front of me in his little dinosaur pajamas, looking up at me expectantly. I scooped him up into my arms and smiled. "Of course, sweetheart." As he snuggled up beside me, he suddenly said, "Mommy, tell me a bedtime story." I took the book and started making up a story. Once upon a time there was a prince, Snow White. After listening, Sam giggled and declared, "Sam is Prince Snow White, Mommy is the princess. When I grow up, I'm going to marry Mommy." I laughed and teased him, "But Mommy already has Daddy, you can't marry me, Sam." I hadn't expected my words to make his little face suddenly fall. That's right, ever since I arrived in this timeline, Sam had never once mentioned Ethan on his own. Did that mean Ethan wasn't good to him? Testing the waters, I gently asked, "Do you not like Daddy?" Sam shook his head furiously. "I like Daddy." But his big round eyes suddenly carried a hint of hesitation, like he was afraid of something. The meaning was clear. It wasn't that Sam didn't like Ethan, it was that I didn't. That didn't seem possible, though. Did I really hate him that much? The next morning after the housekeeper took Sam to school, I decided to clean up some clutter around the house. While rummaging through the storage room, I unexpectedly found a wedding photo tucked away in a dusty corner. In the picture, my face was completely emotionless. I looked like a hollow puppet with no soul. Next to me, Ethan was smiling, but if you looked closely, there was a trace of loneliness in his eyes. It was an awful photo. I instinctively flipped the frame over, but as I did, something clattered to the floor. A small box had been hidden behind the picture. Curious, I opened it. Inside, I found Sam's birth certificate and a folded-up note, one of the little messages I used to pass to Ethan during class. And then there was a letter, a love letter from 16-year-old Ethan Joe to 16-year-old Ava Monroe. For a moment, I didn't know how to feel. It was like biting into a dish of bitter melon, sour, bitter, and filled with an overwhelming sense of regret. This letter had arrived 16 years too late. I stared at it for a long time before quietly putting everything back where I found it. That afternoon, I went to pick Sam up from preschool. At the school gate, teachers led groups of children out one by one. It was funny how kids seemed to have a built-in radar. They could instantly spot their parents in a crowd. The moment Sam saw me, his eyes lit up. He dove over like a little duck, his tiny face flushed with excitement. "Thank you for picking me up, Mommy." My heart instantly melted into a puddle. "From now on, Mommy will pick you up from school every day, okay?" Sam's eyes sparkled. "Can you take me in the morning too?" I firmly shook my head. He pouted. "Why not?" "Because Mommy can't wake up in the morning." Before he could argue, a little girl ran over and looked up at me curiously. "Auntie, are you Jacob's mom?" I nodded. She studied me for a moment before blurting out, "Auntie, you're really pretty. But why have you never picked Jacob up before? The kids in class say you don't like him." Before I could respond, Sam clenched the hem of my shirt, his little face filled with frustration. "That's not true. Mommy likes me." The little girl glanced between us, looking uncertain. I quickly reassured them and led Sam home. But once we got back, I could tell he was feeling down. Wanting to cheer him up, I bought a bunch of my favorite snacks because, let's be honest, kids have great taste, and promised him a big present for his birthday. His eyes lit up with excitement. "That's great. Daddy said he'll be home too." I froze. I had just found that old love letter today, and I hadn't even begun to process my feelings about Ethan, and now he was coming back that night. Following my mommy transformation plan, I decided to help Sam take a bath, but he absolutely refused. His big round eyes blinked at me seriously as he said, "I have a little pee-pee, Mommy doesn't, and I'm almost 5 years old. I can bathe myself." I pinched his chubby little hands. "Really? What if shampoo gets in your eyes? That'll hurt. Besides, you're still only 4.5. Sam hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly accepted my help, but the entire time his face was bright red as he desperately covered himself. Soon it was finally Sam's birthday. He was more excited than I had ever seen him. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate. By midday, heavy rain started pouring down. Ethan's flight was scheduled to arrive in the afternoon, but I wasn't sure if he'd make it on time. Seeing Sam anxiously staring out the window, I called him over. "Come on, let's open your presents." I had prepared 5 gifts, hoping to make up for all the birthdays I had neglected before. No matter how mature Sam seemed, he was still just a child, and it didn't take long for him to get completely lost in the joy of his new toys. As I played with him, we were both giggling in an electric toy car, taking turns driving when he pouted, "Mommy, it's my turn now. You said we'd only play for a little while. Just a little longer, okay? Be a good boy," I teased. Just then the front door opened. Instinctively, we both turned toward the entrance. Outside, the rain poured heavily. Ethan stepped in from the storm, his suit soaked through. Sam shouted, "Daddy!" and ran over excitedly. But Ethan didn't look at him first. His gaze landed directly on me. For a moment we locked eyes across the room, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Even if I hadn't time-traveled, I hadn't seen him in almost 2 years, and I had to admit, him standing there in a fitted suit, rain-soaked, glasses slightly fogged up, was absolutely hitting all my weak spots. Handsome men in glasses, tailored suits, who could resist? Snapping out of it, I awkwardly stammered, "Welcome back." But before I could process what was happening, Ethan took off his wet jacket, walked straight up to me and pulled me into a hug. I completely froze. Wasn't this progressing a little too fast? His voice was low against my ear. "Ava, I'm home." I resisted the urge to rub my ears and quickly hugged him back because really, how could this be considered taking advantage of him? We were husband and wife after all. Ethan pulled back slightly, his expression unreadable as he studied me, but he didn't say anything. By the time I finished lighting the candles on Sam's birthday cake, Ethan had changed into dry clothes and come downstairs. I scratched my cheek awkwardly, trying to gather the courage to sing the birthday song. But for some reason, the words wouldn't come out. Sam, however, was keenly aware of the tension in the room. He glanced at me, then at Ethan, and loudly made his birthday wish. "I wish that tonight Mommy and Daddy will sleep with me." I pressed my lips together. "Sam, my dear son, you're really something else." But before I could say anything, Ethan glanced at me and then calmly told Sam, "Wishes don't come true if you say them out loud." His response immediately dampened the mood. I had almost forgotten Sam might not even be his child. I wasn't one to beat around the bush, so when Sam was out of earshot, I looked Ethan straight in the eye and said, "Ethan, we need to talk." His face darkened instantly. "I'm tired. Whatever it is, let's talk tomorrow." What? Just earlier he had hugged me at the door, and now he was acting all cold. I crossed my arms. "If you don't talk to me, I'll go to your room later and unplug your water heater while you're showering." Despite what he had said, the next day came, and Ethan started avoiding me altogether. Every morning when I woke up, he had already left for work. "You wake up at what time?" Emily stared at me over her coffee, looking incredulous. I rubbed my nose around 9 or 10. "That's normal," I said defensively. Emily raised an eyebrow. "Do you like Ethan?" I quickly took a sip of coffee to buy myself time. When Jason had pursued me back then, I agreed to date him because he was thoughtful, attentive, and of course good-looking. But my feelings for Ethan were different. Emily rolled her eyes. "If you ask me, this whole mess is Ethan's fault. If he hadn't been so ridiculously reserved, that scumbag Jason wouldn't have had a chance." I nodded. "You're absolutely right. Rather than blaming myself, I should be criticizing others instead." Just as I was about to continue ranting, my phone rang. 20 minutes later, I found myself standing outside Sam's preschool. Why? Because I had been called in by the teacher. Inside the office, Sam looked stubbornly defiant while another little kid bawled at the top of his lungs. The teacher explained that Sam had pushed the other child, causing him to fall and scrape his hand. The other kid's parents had already been contacted. I crouched down beside Sam and asked gently what happened. Sam glanced at me, looking a little wronged, then, burying his face into my chest, he mumbled, "He insulted Mommy and wouldn't apologize." I frowned. Why would he say that about me? Just then, the other child's parents arrived. The father stormed in, shouting, "Who the hell dared to bully my son?" It was a couple. The man gave me a once-over with a furious gaze, and before I could react, the woman's expression instantly soured. She scooped up her son and immediately lashed out. "So you're Jacob's mom? Let me tell you, this isn't over. Do you even know what kind of person you are? How dare you let your kid bully my son? I raised an eyebrow. Pushing him was wrong, but your son was the one who started it with his words. Seeing that he now had backup, the little boy immediately stopped crying. His eyes darted around before he blurted out, I didn't say anything bad. I just said Jacob's mom is pretty but a homewrecker, a mistress. A child wouldn't even know what a mistress was. Clearly, he had overheard adults saying it. I crouched down to his level and said in a calm, almost playful tone, Hey kiddo, did you know that children who say bad things get their tongues bitten off by big bad wolves at night? The boy clamped his mouth shut in an instant. His mother's face twisted in anger. He's just a child. Why are you scaring him? Then, as if trying to flaunt her superiority, she scoffed. My husband is the general manager of a big company. So what if our son insulted you? It's just words. She gave me a disdainful look before adding, and besides, was he even wrong? You were never around before. Who knows what kind of woman you are? I mimicked her gaze, looking her up and down. Then with a smirk I said, Wow, ugly on the inside and out. No wonder your kid talks like this. He must be hearing barking at home every day. Her face turned red with rage. Who are you calling a dog? Before I could react, she suddenly lunged toward me, trying to grab Sam. Get over here and apologize to my son. I dodged to the side, shielding Sam. The teacher, seeing how things were escalating quickly, stepped in to stop the commotion. But the woman, unwilling to back down, found an opening and swung her hand toward my face. Just before the slap could land, a firm hand reached out and caught her wrist. You're here to solve a problem or start a fight? Ethan's voice was calm, but his expression was ice cold. The man who had been standing by, watching the drama unfold, suddenly went pale. His eyes widened in horror. I'm Mr. XC. He immediately yanked his wife back, frantically apologizing. Ethan narrowed his eyes. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to run into you here, Mr. Chun. It turns out this so-called big company manager was actually a supplier for Ethan's company. He had a reputation for having terrible morals, and his wife was known for yelling and cursing at home, influencing their child's behavior. Ethan raised a hand, silencing the man growling. Mr. Chun, you didn't seem this apologetic earlier. From what I saw, you and your wife weren't here to resolve an issue. You were here to cause a scene. If I hadn't stepped in, that slap would have landed on my wife's face. The entire room fell silent. Ethan's voice remained cold. I heard Jacob pushed your son. Fine, take him to the hospital for a checkup. We'll cover the medical expenses. But before that, shouldn't your family apologize to my wife and son? The couple immediately started bowing and apologizing, their earlier arrogance completely gone. I didn't like Sam seeing this kind of display, so I simply took his hand and left. Once we got home, I figured this was finally the perfect time to have a serious conversation with Ethan. But before I could say anything, he was already grabbing his keys. I have work to do. I need to head back to the office. Like hell, he was getting away that easily. I didn't even hesitate. Sam, go get him. Sam immediately ran over and clung to his dad's leg like a koala. Ethan frowned. If this is about a divorce, can we not talk about it in front of Sam? I rolled my eyes, grabbed his wrist, and dragged him into the bedroom. The moment the door shut, I turned around and slammed my palm against the wall beside him, pinning him in place. His brows furrowed, but a faint pink crept up his cheeks. Honestly, I had to admit he looked really attractive back there at the preschool, stepping in right at the perfect moment, his expression sharp and commanding. I tilted my head up, my voice dropping into a soft whisper. Husband. His face didn't change, but his ears turned red like a freshly steamed crab. I felt my own face heat up. Clearing my throat, I decided to just get straight to the point and explain the entire time travel situation. He listened quietly. After a long pause, he finally muttered, As hard as it is to believe, it actually makes sense. Then, after another moment, he added, I noticed something was off since Sam's birthday. I thought maybe your attitude changed because... His voice trailed off. Because you thought I was just trying to get on your good side before asking for a divorce? I finished for him. He didn't deny it. I hummed. So, did I really treat you that badly before? Instead of answering, he looked at me and asked, Do you really want to know what happened that day? The day Jason caught us. I nodded. And also Sam. Sam is my son. Ethan's voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. I was stunned. Are you sure? He adjusted his glasses, avoiding my gaze. There's no question about it. He was lying, I could tell. I leaned in slightly and whispered, "Husband, married couples should be honest with each other. You know?" At my words, he instinctively pushed up his glasses again, a clear sign that he was feeling flustered. Ethan finally spilled everything. So for this emotionally repressed man, the word husband was basically the magic phrase to make him talk. That vague explanation, I managed to piece together the truth. Jason had wanted to break up with me but didn't want to take responsibility for it. So he set me up, making it look like I had cheated. In reality, Sam was Ethan's child, and we had married because of the pregnancy. But because of everything that had happened, I had resented him, and as a result, we had been living in separate rooms ever since our wedding. Well, Mr. Joe, time to take down the Jason Corporation. Ethan shot me an amused glance and said, I did report it to the police at the time, but there was no solid evidence, and you kept insisting nothing had happened. Damn, in a way Jason really was talented. He had somehow managed to dig out my brainstem and turn me into an idiot. What a masterpiece of a life mistake. Ethan and I ended up chatting for a long time after that. We talked about everything, from when I used to blackmail him into buying me snacks as kids to how I had accidentally broken Sam's toy car just the other day. Curious, I suddenly asked, how did Sam get his nickname? Ethan hesitated for a moment before replying. His eyes flickered with a bit of embarrassment. I narrowed my eyes. Wait, is it from Thomas the Tank Engine? His lips parted slightly, then closed again. Finally, he admitted, it's from Thomas Tommy. I glanced over at the Thomas the Tank Engine pajamas casually draped over the chair and held back a laugh. How could anyone not love this story? That night, despite how long we talked, I didn't end up asking him to move back into the master bedroom. These things should happen naturally. Besides, he was already my husband. He wasn't going anywhere. As for Jason, I hadn't even gotten around to dealing with him when he suddenly announced a college reunion in our alumni group chat. And not only that, he actually tagged me. The moment I saw his message, I wanted to go slap myself in the bathroom mirror. Ava Monroe, how did you ever fall for that piece of trash? If I had known things would turn out like this, I would have thrown all my energy into chasing Ethan from the start. There was no question I was definitely going to this reunion, but I wasn't going alone. I immediately told Ethan about it. He asked what I wanted to do. First, I'll gather some intel, then I'll settle old scores and return the favor. I patted his shoulder. Mr. Z, make sure to have my back, all right? Ethan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. On the day of the reunion, I had originally planned to just go with Ethan, but as luck would have it, the housekeeper had taken the day off, so we had to bring Sam along. Since plenty of people probably knew about what had happened between Jason and me, I worried they might say something inappropriate. To avoid any awkward situations, I asked Ethan to stay in the car with Sam while I went in first. As expected, the moment I showed up, a bunch of old classmates surrounded me. Some were offering sympathetic words while others were clearly there just to gossip. I scanned the familiar faces. It was strange. Just a few years ago, we had all been so youthful and full of life, but now time had left its marks on everyone. From their chatter, I managed to pick up some details about Jason's life. Apparently, my former college roommate had snagged him after coming into a fortune when her family's land got bought out. Now he had started his own business, and from what I heard, it was doing decently well. Just as the gossip was reaching its peak, Jason and his wife arrived. The moment I saw him, I had only one thought. Thank God I dodged that bullet. His receding hairline, bulging stomach, and bloated face made him look nothing like the so-called campus heartthrob he once was. And he actually had the audacity to tag me in that group chat. Jason walked up with a fake smile. Ava, it's been 5 years, and you're still as beautiful as ever. I forced a polite smile, said nothing, and immediately turned away. I had zero interest in playing some childish game of winning the breakup. I slipped into the restroom and called Ethan. Come get me. On the other end of the line, Ethan chuckled softly. On my way, just as I stepped out of the restroom, I was startled by a shadow leaning against the wall. Ava, the shadow spoke. How have you been all these years? It was Jason. For a second, I almost thought someone had shoved a wardrobe in front of the bathroom door. He stared at me for a moment, and when I didn't respond, he even reached out as if to grab my hand. I nearly jumped back 2 feet. Stay back. I'm allergic to ugly. Jason's face twisted for a moment before quickly smoothing over. Ava, are you still mad at me? I quickly cut him off before he could continue his nonsense, waving my hands dramatically. I bowed to him 3 times on the spot. Thank you for not marrying me back then. I owe you a great debt. Then, before he could react, I bolted back to the reunion. As soon as I sat down on the couch, Jason followed me in, but right at that moment, the lively chatter in the room died down for a brief second before soft murmurs started spreading. Who's that guy? Damn, was he always this good-looking? Wait, was there really someone this handsome at our school back then? No way. Even Jason wasn't this good-looking in his prime. I turned toward the entrance. Ethan had arrived. I let out a relieved sigh and immediately got up to take his arm. Let me introduce you. This is my husband. Since Sam was still waiting for us in the car, we didn't stay much longer. But before we left, I couldn't help but take a final glance at Jason standing beside Ethan. They looked like 2 different species. At that moment, I truly understood there was no such thing as a battle between evenly matched men in this world. As we walked downstairs, Ethan teased, "So is your revenge plan canceled?" I pretended to be tipsy, resting my head lightly on his shoulder. In a soft voice I murmured, "I've already won." The warm summer night breeze carried my words away. Since it was such a nice evening, I suggested we leave the car behind and take a walk as a family under the stars. The glow of streetlights illuminated Sam, who bounced along beside us, happily singing some anime opening song at the top of his lungs. I turned to Ethan, leaned in, and whispered something in his ear. His eyes lit up and he turned to look at me, his expression identical to Sam's, bright and eager. I laughed and hooked my arm through his, then pointed at a row of public electric scooters ahead. "Hubby, I'm tired. Let's take one of those home." The affectionate look on Ethan's face instantly disappeared. He glanced at my dress and asked, "Are you sure?" I blinked at him innocently with a resigned expression. He sighed, took off his suit jacket, and tied it around my waist. Dressed in just his dress shirt, he put Sam in front and me in the back before climbing onto the scooter. Sam had never ridden one before, and the entire way, his laughter rang through the night air. Unfortunately, we didn't even make it 2 miles before we were stopped by a traffic officer. Apparently, it was illegal to have more than 1 passenger on an electric scooter, so we ended up getting fined $20 and still had to take a taxi home. Sometime later, I ran into Jason again. I had taken Sam out for some street food when the scent of freshly fried stinky tofu lured us to a corner stall. When I scanned the QR code to pay, I suddenly realized the person selling the stinky tofu was none other than Jason. He recognized me, and his expression twisted as he started complaining about how his company had collapsed due to tax issues. His clients had all left, and his accountant had run off with the last of his money. He had been forced to shut down his business, drowning in debt. This disgusting man actually thought he could get sympathy from me. Even worse, he had the audacity to reach out as if to touch me. I resisted the urge to gag and instead smiled sweetly. "Don't worry. I'll definitely find a way to help you out." Then, after I had walked far enough away, I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hello. I'd like to report an unlicensed street vendor." Not long after, I watched as the city inspectors arrived and confiscated his food cart. Tears welled up in my eyes. Such a shame. I had really been craving that stinky tofu. Since I had already promised Sam some junk food, I still let him indulge in grilled skewers, takoyaki, and fried flatbreads. Just as we were happily munching and watching the scene unfold, Ethan suddenly appeared and caught us red-handed. I gave him an innocent smile. We didn't eat anything. We were just watching. Sam eagerly nodded in agreement. Yeah. Mommy and I totally didn't eat grilled skewers, takoyaki, or fried noodles." Ethan, clearly used to our antics, said, "Next time, just tell me if you want to eat something. Street food isn't clean." I nodded obediently while simultaneously adding more items to my mental food order. As the city lights flickered on, the 3 of us strolled home together. Side story back to the past. One moment I was curled up in Ethan's arms, happily plotting to have a second, The next moment I opened my eyes, I was back in my college dorm room, half asleep. I reached for my phone and answered a call. Ava, baby, wake up. Your darling boyfriend is waiting downstairs on an empty stomach. My entire body stiffened. Who the hell was this greasy-sounding guy? Then it hit me, it was Jason. The mere thought of his future bald head and beer belly made me lose my appetite for the next 3 days. Without hesitation, I jumped out of bed, ran downstairs in front of everyone, and dumped him on the spot. Then I immediately called Ethan. The phone rang for a long time before he finally answered. His voice was deep and low. Hello. I suddenly remembered last night. I had just publicly announced my relationship with Jason. I cleared my throat and asked, Ethan Joe, a million encounters, a step as vast as eternity. What exactly did you mean by that post you made this morning? Ethan remained silent, his breathing steady. I rolled my eyes. Typical repressed man. All right, I'll give you one chance. No questions, just answer this. Do you want to date me with marriage as the goal? There was a pause, then he said, Monroe, I like you. I always have. So then why didn't your love letter ever reach me? You'll find out in 10 years. Ethan exhaled lightly before adding, because that day I overheard you in the classroom saying I would never like Ethan Joe in this lifetime. That one moment of foolish pride had cost me 10 whole years. I took a deep breath. Ethan, listen. I actually came back from 10 years in the future. I know it sounds crazy, but in that future we're married. And yes, we even have a child. That revelation hit him so hard that he flew back from overseas that very night. Not only did he seriously confess to me all over again, but he also insisted on immediately taking me home to meet his parents. A year after graduation, we got married. We took beautiful wedding photos, and when I asked Emily to be my bridesmaid, she smugly told me, Not bad, Ava. You really pulled through in the end. For a while, Ethan and I focused on our careers and didn't rush to have children. But then when I turned 27, Is it today? Ethan whispered in my ear. Half asleep, I murmured, Sam's birthday is today. Ethan froze for a moment. A drop of sweat rolled down his face. There are 12 months in a year, he muttered. With my half-melted brain, I tried to process his words. Pregnancy takes 10 months, he continued, rubbing my head gently. So it should actually be 2 months from now. 12 months later, I safely gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Ethan named him Jacob. I crossed the river of time beyond the limits of science and reason. No matter how many times I traveled through the years, I always found my way back to him.